Hello and welcome to Writers on Writers, a virtual broadcast of writers talking with other writers about, wait for it, writing. I am your host, writer Danielle Bannister, and this month's steamy author is Katherine Rhodes, writer of all things steamy. Welcome, Katherine.
Hi.
Hi. So I think it's important to let people know the irony that played out this morning in reminding you, hey, we're going to be meeting in an hour, just touching base. She says, I'm making balls. You were playing with balls this morning, right?
Yes, but wait. You have to understand, it's the mighty, manly, meaty meatball recipe. It's my favorite meatball recipe.
I just thought that was the perfect thing for you to say on the day that we were recording a steamy broadcast, is that you were making balls.
I'm making balls. I'm cooking my balls.
Sorry, maybe inappropriate, but I figured we had to.
Yes, absolutely.
So before we sort of dive into anything steamy, I just want to point out to those watching the steamy books. This is this all of the steamy books that you have written, or do you have more than just what I've put up there?
Well, almost all of my books are like really steamy, but these particular ones that you have up right now are in the BDSM genre.
Okay.
But I have other ones that are also in the erotica genre and, well, I wouldn't say erotic romance genre. And I have just like any of my, any Katherine Rhodes is guaranteed to be like no holds barred with the doors open.
The door is open, the lights are on.
There's a spotlight going on.
We're participating here.
Yes.
Fair enough. So I picked these books because I've read I think almost all of them in this series. I think when I was looking through it, I'm like, wait, there's another one that I wasn't aware of. So I have read these books. That's why I'm like, well, I know that these are definitely steamy. So I'm gonna pick these books. So I know that. But your books, I mean, at least this series, it feels more like a safe word compared to my one semi-steamy novel, The First 100 Kisses, where the lights are on, but maybe the spotlight isn't on. You still can see, but you definitely shine a light on the action, as it were. So I guess my first question is to you: what drew you to write? Apparently, this series of novels that we have on display. What drew you to that particular niche within the erotica?
Well, actually, it was 50 Shades of Grey. So I read it. I was highly disappointed in it because I felt like it could be more explicit. There was, I mean,
it
obviously,
felt too safe. You mean?
It felt like she didn't have a good grasp on the whole topic of BDSM and a consensual relationship. That the whole thing felt very abusive, and that he really took advantage of her. And I also have a little bit of a feminist twist where I wanted her to be in charge more often. So I flipped it around and out came consensual. I wrote it in, I think, 45 days. I was just like, this is going to happen. And it did. And I did a lot of, as I went along, I did a lot of research into the BDSM community. I joined FetLife, which is, if you don't know what FetLife is, it is full of people who will enjoy the BDSM lifestyle. They live it. Some of them are 24/7 dom sub situations. Some are master slave. It can be really, really intense. And then there's some that are more casual. But the other thing was that you could get a lot of feel for how those relationships played out, what people were looking for. And I did a lot of research there. I read a lot of blogs from mistresses, DOMs, DOMME. And I incorporated all of that. But I toned it down a lot because I didn't want it to be extreme. I didn't want to deal with a 24/7 relationship between the characters, because that's like That's
too much. So it's interesting that you bring up the 50 Shades thing, because I've heard that a lot actually from erotica writers, that it was a sort of a failed attempt to really portray what the sort of genre that they were trying to portray, that it didn't really do the community justice at all, and sort of painted it in a not great light. So
it really did. It was it painted it in a very negative light, where it seemed like everybody was abusive and that everybody's coerced into it, and they're absolutely not. And I mean, that's the whole point of safe, sane, and consensual, the safe, sane, and consensual motto of the BDSM community, or the kink community, because if it's not consensual, safe, and sane, it shouldn't be done.
Right.
You know, and there was some stuff in 50 Shades that was like, you're coercing her, dude. Back it off.
Yeah, agreed. I couldn't get past the first book. I was just like, oh, I can't. I don't like you. I don't want to read any more of this.
I made it through all three, but
did they get better? Should I have?
Honestly, well, the second one kind of answered a whole bunch of questions.
Okay.
And the third one, honestly, you could have taken the last 50 pages of the book and expanded that and lost everything else in it, because those last 50 pages were super intense and super well done, and then it just disappeared.
Yeah.
And it was the last 50 pages. Right. So I'm like, well, this is a waste of my time.
Right. Maybe one of these days I'll try again. I don't know. Now here's an interesting question, because I know people assume this from me. Do people ever assume, because of the type of books that you write, not necessarily just this line, but you know, you said that you write a lot of steamy sort of stuff. Do people just naturally assume that because you write this also must be your lifestyle in person? Do they confuse those lines? They do.
Oh, they confuse that line a lot. I am not a practitioner of BDSM. You know,
and if you were, it would be nobody's business.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. Like there were a couple when I was on FetLife, there were, you know, and I presented myself as an author doing research in the community. And there were guys who approached me and said, you know, I want you to tie me up. I want you to spank me. I want to fly you out. And I'm like, dude, I'm married. No. And I'm monogamous. I'm not polyamorous. So go away. You know, they do mistake it a lot. They really do. But you know, you brush it off, or you block them.
Right.
I block more than one person. So
I mean, I guess I can understand why sort of people do it, because I guess writers sometimes will draw from personal experience and stories that they write, but we're also writing fiction. We're not writing autobiography, which would be a different story. You know,
there's no doubt that I have elements of reality in all of my books, things that have
absolutely, absolutely, sure,
life.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are really funny, and some of them are just
right. Yeah, that's hard. I get a lot of times people just assuming that I am the character in whatever book that I've written, and I'm like, all of my characters are very different. You think that I'm all of those people? They're maybe a little bit, but no, maybe I know. But yeah, it's fiction. It's, you know,
it's fiction.
Yeah,
it's always. Yeah. I mean, you know, we spend hours doing research on the most ridiculous things.
Yes, the search histories that we have. Yeah. Please don't take us away. I swear it's research.
Please don't. I think it's. Oh, look at that. This one here, Not Quite Juliet.
Yeah.
Okay. In this
book, love that cover.
I know, it's so awesome. I do most of my own covers too.
Nice.
But in this book, the character she's in court. And the other character, they're trying someone, so they have a character witness, and he comes in and he has to tell them how many apple seeds it would take to actually poison somebody. So I had to sit there and do like molar calculations to figure out how many apple seeds I needed to kill somebody.
Because, you know, if you hadn't done that research, somebody would have done it for you and called you out on it. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
100%. Somebody would have called me out on it.
Yeah. That is hysterical. Now, talk to me a little bit. Maybe I'm latching on to the Club Imperial series because I've read the most from that line. But I was curious when I was reading them, because I'm not very good at planning and mapping out series. I'm wondering for you, was it all sort of mapped out for you? Like, did you know how the story was going to play out? Or did you at the end of it go, I wonder where I could go from here? Or was it reader demand saying we want more? Like, how do you normally work? Whether it's this series or any series, I guess.
Well, with Consensual and Broken Bonds, it was totally, I was pantsing it. I pantsed it. I knew, as with any romance, it had to have a happy ending. That was my biggest thing. But how they got there was still kind of muddy. With Knots and Untied, because it is such an intricate story and there's so many little tiny clues and details as you go along, I did have to map that one out a little bit more than the other one. And I had to make sure that this character did this at this time and that this character said this at this time. So it was a little bit more mapped out. Most of my stories are either are plantser. They're plants, but it's plotting because it's like, oh, this is a great idea. Oh, this is a great idea. So I have to start mapping it out as I go along. But a lot of them are pantsed. I will say that my the Vampire Crown series that I'm writing with Scarlet Dawn, we've started to have to detail plot that beat by beat, character by character.
Authorship is a whole different beast when it comes to planning. Whole different beast.
It had to be this time. Like most of the time, we were able to just kind of pass each other off. But this time, we had to actually map out the chapters, and it was like it took us probably 3 hours to map out the chapters after we knew what was going to happen. So it's a lot of, I do a lot of pantsing. And then it turns into a plotted story as I go along because
in the editing process, is it like you're like, oh, it feels like something's missing here type of thing, or just organically becomes?
As I go along, I'll get like as I start typing, I'll get little seeds of ideas, and I'm like, hey, this is a great idea. Let me plot this out into the story. My vomit copy, my first copy, is where you're just spewing it out.
Oh, absolutely.
I've been writing so long that in a lot of cases, my vomit copy is almost to the finished stage.
Nice. So there's hope. It's what you're saying for that first draft. There's hope.
There's hope. There's totally hope. I mean, I do go through and I rip them apart. I mean, I've just, under my new pen name, I just had to rip out like 7 book, and I was like, I don't want to get rid of them, but I had to because the story went the wrong direction. So I had to rip it out. But I didn't get very far before I realized that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a good plotter. I'm not.
Go ahead. Yeah. I myself started out definitely pantsing the whole way. And it takes a lot of work in the drafting to go, okay, that sucked, pull that out, you meandered here, da, 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 da. Now I'm sort of in the middle. Now I see it. I have a blank outline in front of me of the sort of the beats that logically should happen in any story. These are the normal sort of beats that traditionally happen in a story. You can vary from that, but generally these are the things that happen in a story. Right. And so I'll look at that and go, okay, so in this chapter, this is when I need to introduce my catalyst. I don't know what that catalyst might be, but I know that this is where something, so I sort of kind of in the middle line of that. But if I'm doing a collaborative sort of project, I have to outline it at all of it from start to finish, sort of just with the beat points of like, in this chapter, she sees the love of her life, but whatever it is, just so that the other person has a sense of where my brain is going, so that their idea meshes with mine. So I've done both, and I do like that there's a little bit of freedom when you're sort of pantsing that,
there's a lot of freedom in pantsing. I do have another co-written story with Aurora Zani, who it's that's his pen name.
Nice.
And he took it after his grandmother.
No.
He's very nice.
No.
But he and we have like an end game for the series, but we don't really plot out a lot. We just kind of chuck it back and forth and see what happens. And that one's chaotic, but that's the nature of our writing together, is chaotic. We don't really.
You got to find your own rhythms with people.
You really do. You have to find every co-author is going to be different too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wildly different in how they work. Yeah.
What works with one is not going to work with the other, and then you have to mesh your writing styles, and sometimes you have to take yours a step in their direction. They have to come towards you, and that's when you do all that in the editing process.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, every co-author is different, and every story is different.
So in terms of writing sex scenes, and I've written several sex scenes in a couple of different stories. First 100 Kisses is sort of, it's explicitly meant to be there. It's explicitly meant to be a steamy novel, and that's part of the plot, is that this has to happen. We have to see this in order for the plot to make sense. Mm-hmm. Which is generally the case when you're writing a sex scene. It typically needs to be there unless it's there just to titillate. And that's okay too, but you just need to know that going in. What is this scene here to do? Is it driving the plot forward, or are we just having some fun? Either way, but you need to know. But do you ever write a sex scene and go, no, I can't publish this. This is too much. I've gone too far. Do you ever go, that's too much? Or you're like, it's all, let's do it?
I've got, I think one I didn't put in because it was, I forgot why I didn't put it in, but it was just like a step too far. And it didn't necessarily have to do with the sex in it, but the situation, and it seemed a rather inappropriate scene for that spot, and it was really, really dirty. And the surrounding situation was not conducive to that. So I think that's really the only one I've ever pulled out. I have secret sex scenes from my YA books that will never get published. But yeah.
Nice. Now you write in several different pen names. I don't know how you keep it together. I can barely maintain my own name, let alone you've got quite a few pen names. Is it a certain pen name for a certain genre? Is that sort of how you break it down, or actually, is it to protect work or something? Like, I don't want my work colleagues to read this, or.
Well, to a degree, it's my work colleagues, because I don't necessarily need them coming over and go wink, wink, nudge, nudge all the time.
Right.
Like,
yes.
I'm running a hot water line here. I don't need you wink, winking, nudge, nudging me.
Right.
This is a PNID for a hydrogen plant. Don't come near me right now. But in a lot of cases, it's to separate how steamy it really is. Anything I read under Katherine Rhodes is no holds barred, go crazy, it's all going to be filthy. Anything I write under J. Rose Alexander is going to probably be slamming the door shut after the first kiss, or the first plucks of the shirt. Basically, it's safe for just about anybody over 13. And that has more to do with the subject matter than with the actual sex scene. I feel like those stories, there's love stories in them, but they don't necessarily need to be explicit for that.
Sure.
I do have a series that will eventually roll into Katherine, because it needs the intensity of the sex scenes, but just about everything else, like my superheroes and all that stuff, that's all, that's all under J. Rose, and that's all very not steamy. Then I separated out a genre. S.A. Summers is the newest one. And that's all gay romance, LGBTQ plus, because I've seen I read a lot of romance, a lot of it. And I've seen some of the other authors, and they have had problems with the audience being extremely demanding if they write, and they're just not allowed to actually write anything else but MM, and they get mad and they get angry mail, they get hate mail because they're writing something other than MM. It's like, people are allowed to write other genres. You realize that, right?
Yeah. That sense of reader entitlement, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It's reader entitlement to an nth degree, and it's not right. So just to avoid that, I just separated out S.A. Summers, and I just write, that's all going to be MM or LGBTQ, whatever the story demands.
So how many total pen names do you have then?
Just three.
Just the three.
I eliminated one too. I used to have another one with 2 other people, but we eliminated it.
Is it hard to maintain 3 different pen names? Like, do you have to have like certain social medias for all 3, or do you just sort of market it as whatever's releasing, that's what you're pushing?
I do try to, everything has its own social media. It does have its own social media. It has its own, I have my own, well, here's the trick I learned, okay? Not only do I have the 3 pen names, I also have the publishing assistants, like the covers and the formatting, which is a 4th situation. But what I learned was there's a trick. Everyone has its own browser. So everything under J. Rose goes under Chrome. Everything under Katherine goes under Firefox. Everything under S.A. Summers goes under Edge or Safari. And everything under Downright Nuts, which is the company, goes under Opera. So whatever I open up, so I can have all 4 up at the same time. I can have a conversation between myself, all 4 of them. And it really, it helps a lot because all of my links are right there.
Right. Yeah. You can bookmark separately to each sort of thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. That's a sort of a smart. I'm still not going to do it because it hurts my brain.
I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of work. I mean, having 2 Instagram accounts, having 3 Facebooks, having,
websites for all of them.
Yes, websites for all of them. I'm rebuilding Katherine right now.
Wow.
Because WordPress stinks, but I'm putting it on a different.
I know.
Yeah, I'm putting it on a different platform.
Do the best we can.
Yeah, exactly. So I have to rebuild that. So
we talked a little bit about this, but I'd like to. One of the reasons I wanted to do this show is because I sort of missed going to signings, not only to interact with readers, because that's always great to be able to hear from readers and to talk to potential new readers about your books. But what I also missed was really talking to authors and other people within the business, just sort of touching base and checking in, because writing is such a solitary craft that you're doing it essentially all on your own, and I just felt like it was so important for other authors to sort of make sure that we're lifting each other up and we're talking about our struggles and what works for us and what doesn't work for us. So I was just curious, because for me, I'm always looking for easier ways to do things, because I feel like there must be easy ways to do some of these things. Because you write in so many different genres, and how many books do you actually have out, by the way? You don't even know. You don't even know. That's how many.
Somewhere north of 60. I actually have to do a recount. God. I think I'm on 65 or 66.
Okay, so you are the person to ask this question. What is your writing process like? Do you, with all of these books, do you follow the same path? Like, I get up at this hour and this is what I do, or are you all over the map? No. For every book is a little different.
Every book's a little different. My goal is actually to get home and do about 2 hours of writing a night, because I do have a full-time job. I've always had a full-time job. I'll probably always have a full-time job, but I try to come home and do my chores, make dinner, feed the husband, feed the cats.
The life stuff that gets in the way.
And then I'll try to write for about 2 hours. I find I'm more productive when I sit at a desk. So I do have my Mac, I don't like Macs, set up in the corner. But it's kind of facing like the rest of the room so that I don't feel like I'm in a different area from my husband. And I feel like I'm more interactive that way, but I do try to do about 2 hours of writing every night, whether I actually do or not.
Right.
But I have also been known, I actually bought a better phone when I was commuting so that I could write on the train. I used to sit on the train and type on my phone.
Nice.
Dictation doesn't work for me because I get really angry that it's not putting in exactly what I said.
Yeah.
Like, new line.
Right.
And then it puts you line. And like, no, I didn't say you line. I said new line.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. Do you give yourself, I mean, like by now after 60 books, are you like, you know what, it's going to take me 3 months to get this start to finish, or 6 months or whatever? Do you have like a sort of like, about how long, or does it vary again from book to book?
From book to book, it varies a little bit, but I know about how long it takes me to write X amount of words. Like I know that I can do 50,000 words in a, my husband, in a month. And I can do about 50,000 words. Yeah, I know. In about a month. And if I really, really push it, and I did it just recently, I did 30,000 words in a weekend. So if I push it, I know I can write a book in about a week, assuming I don't go to work or sleep, anything like that. So
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I know that it takes me X amount of time. It also depends on if I'm feeling the story too.
Yeah.
The last one that I just finished writing, which was for my MM pen name, it took me an inordinately long time, but I think that had to do with the fact that there was a pandemic. I lost my job. I needed a new job. I had to find another job. I was cooking. So there was a whole bunch of stuff going on. And it took me like 4 months to write. And then the book wound up at 82,000 words. So
it comes as it comes. It's literally all you can do. Yeah, I tend to, my process is, I don't, it's not a timed out thing, but I know roughly a first draft is going to take me 3 months just because, life, kids, it's probably going to take me 3 months to do a rough draft and then a couple months to do it. So I only put out a couple of books a year. I'm not at 60. I'm only at 15. So I'm a slacker apparently. But I am trying to get a little bit better on word count and doing a little bit more writing.
I mean, like every author is going to have their own process. Yeah. No one is going to be exactly like anybody else. And that's just the way it is.
It's true. It's true. In thinking about process, is there a part that you really enjoy the most about writing? And on the flip side, is there something you really hate about writing?
I absolutely love finding out what the ending of my book is going to be. I love it. I don't know how it's going to end. I don't know what's going to happen with these characters, but yeah, it's the actual process of creation, the very first draft of it. I think it was Toni Morrison who said, if you can't find a story you like, write it.
Yeah.
I write my own. I wrote my book because I wanted to read it. Mm-hmm. And that's really what I do. I do that a lot. I reread my own novels a ridiculous amount.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
And you don't want to change them? You don't find that you want to change them?
No.
Because that's my fear, is that I'm going to be like, oh God, I hate that. I want to change this.
I mean, like there's wording and stuff like that that I want to change, but in general, no, not at all. I actually really, really enjoy reading my own stories. I forgot I wrote a funny line. I forgot I wrote a scene. Something along those lines.
Character's name. Oh, that was your name. Oh, okay.
We didn't talk about the character names. We forget those all the time.
Oh my God. It's horrible. I have to do a journal for each book with like a character breakdown and a picture of them, because I can never remember what they look like, what their name is, nothing. They are a shapeless thing in my head.
Yeah.
Names are the worst. I have a baby book that I use for names. I literally pull it off the shelf. I'm like, that's your name. Go. I can't. I don't want to be bogged down with your name.
Exactly.
I want the story.
I use the baby name books too. But sometimes the characters will tell you their name, but I also have like a document that I have on the screen when I'm writing.
See, you're good. That's something I was thinking about the other day. I'm like, oh, wait, I can't just name that person. Didn't I name somebody else that already? So I got to do that.
Each book. Yeah, and in each series, I keep track of the names because I did it in one of the series. Two of the characters have the same name. It's Billy and Billy. And I actually play off it later on because the Billy meets Billy or Billy versus Billy.
Nice. So it looks like you meant to do that. It was all part of the plan.
It looked like I meant to do that.
I might have to hit you up with like, how did you format that? Because I've tried to think about it in my brain, like how do I organize that properly? And I bet you've come up with a really good way to do that because you're a very organized person. So I
try to be.
You're a very organized person. So, but what's your least favorite?
My husband is laughing at that, by the way.
In the writing sense. In the writing sense,
honey. In the writing sense.
Let's clarify. In the writing sense, you're quite together and with it and organized.
You said I can't find my own glasses and they're on my face.
Well, that happens to the best of us. That happens to the best of us. A least favorite thing about writing?
Probably when I have to do a hard edit, meaning that there's stuff in the story that just doesn't work. I don't like. The characters have gone the wrong direction, and I have to rip that out, get rid of it. Because for a long time, it was very hard for me to go back and say it's okay to delete this. It's okay to get rid of this. And
it's not wasted writing just because I can't use it here.
Right.
You know, it got me to where I needed to be. It's not waste. Yeah.
And that's probably the worst part is pulling out. Like I have a couple of scenes that, and Aurora yells at me all the time. You got to rip that out. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't go anywhere. There's no purpose to it, you know? And I very much believe that a good story has tangents in it, like a tangential little, you know, snippet.
A little side quest.
Right, a side quest, and it helps to reveal the characters more. But he's right. Sometimes there are scenes in those books that it's just like, yeah, there's no point to this. I always remember a long time ago, I wrote with one of my best friends in high school. And the story is actually, I've published the story since she rescinded all of her claim on it. But I wrote the story. And one of the scenes she wrote was this absolutely pointless scene where the character comes out of the bedroom in a pair of wolf slippers, talks to one of the other characters, and then approaches one of the other characters, and the other character says, well, what's up? And he goes, I don't remember, and walks back in, and that was the whole scene. So I call them slipper scenes, you know, because there was no point to this scene. There's none. And it was driving me crazy. And I was very happy to rip that out when I got to
it. And that's what that is that when writing, you couldn't think of anything to say. And so you came up with something, but you wrote it and you don't want to cut it because you spent time writing it. But you've got to be willing to cut the things that don't work. I once wrote an entire novel, 60,000 words of a novel, and realized I was telling the story from the wrong character's point of view and scrapped it and took that character, and it needed to be her story, not his. So, I mean, did it hurt to let go of those words? Absolutely. Was it the right thing to do? Also, absolutely. You know, sometimes what you have to do is you have to be willing to murder your darlings.
Kill your darlings. Yes, exactly. Yes. I mean, it was adorable that the werewolf came out wearing werewolf slippers, but you know.
But make it go somewhere if you want that.
Exactly.
You know, make it have a point.
Emergency wearing them, you know, because that's the kind of character he is. He would do that.
Well, I was wondering, and you can say no to this if you want to, but I do see that you have books behind you. And I wondered if you might humor us with either reading the back blurb of one of your books or reading a small selection from that, just so that we have a sense of what your writer voice is.
Sure.
Yay!
I'm actually going to do one of my shifter books. I'll do
this one.
Taming
Are there slippers in it?
No. Sorry, no slippers.
Okay,
And
I'll let it pass.
let me see. And I swear a lot. My characters swear.
You know what? People in the world swear a lot.
Yes, they do. They really do.
What it is.
It's particularly okay. I'll read the prologue to this.
Okay.
So there's the prologue. See, I put little wolves in it too. That's what happens when you can format.
Nice.
I have little wolves howling. It's so cute.
I love it. I think that's great.
Okay, so this is the first book in the Juneau packs in Taming Alaska. And just FYI, this picture I actually took of the glaciers outside of Juneau.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Alaska's amazing. Alaska is amazing. Okay. It's been a while.
That's all right.
I told you this would be worth it, Brandy crowed. My ass is killing me, Delia answered. How much further? Why does this road suck so much? Should be just ahead. Brandy was clearly excited. I just leaned on my fist. The cabin had been just ahead for about an hour. Thankfully, the window I was staring out of had a great view. I'd never been to Alaska, and the views of Favorite Channel and Burner Bay were as stunning as we managed to rumble slowly, carefully, over the rough road alongside Davies Creek. A small sign, after half an hour of plowing through underbrush, scraping and dinging and ripping the paint on the Land Cruiser, and banging around against the car and each other in the back seat, that directed us away from the precipice that had been getting closer. I let out a sigh of relief as Brandy took the turn. Xana admitted, out loud, that she had been afraid of heading straight for the ice field at the top. I hadn't told her about the deadly cliff off on the left. Addie questioned the road even more after a very long mile drive. I couldn't blame her. My ass cheeks simply could not be any more numb. The view, as we rounded what I thought was supposed to be a corner, was well worth it. The bay, the channel, and the archipelago that hid Glacier Bay National Park from view were set up neatly in picture-perfect early summer scenes. It was everything I had dreamed June in Alaska would look like, and the delightful shock that I was actually in Alaska rolled up from my toes. The rough and tumble, well-loved, also known as beat-up, Land Cruiser managed to bust through the last of the underbrush into a clearing. Allegedly, the cabin would be there, slightly protected by the trees at the edge. Brandy threw the SUV into park. Her eyes grew wide and her face contorted in complete disgust. No! Yanking her seatbelt out of the lock, she nearly ripped the door off the hinges as she burst into the cool summer air and mud. No, no! Her feet stuck in the thick, sucking mud as she headed for what looked like a sort of a porch. Yanking branches out of the way, screaming and yelling the whole time. It only took a minute before we could see the front door. Brandy's words echoed back to us through the trees. This place is a mess. No, this can't be. Harrison swore the place was in good order. She turned to us and we all climbed out of the vehicle. That lying fucking dick weasel.
Nice. That is a good curse word. I like it. That should be in more people's vernacular. That is a good one. I like it. Now, is that one also a steamy read, or is that a different genre? What genre would you classify?
This is a very steamy read. This is a Katherine Rhodes. It's very steamy. It's paranormal. It's actually going to be part of a gigantic world that I'm setting up called the Pine Valley. The Pine Valley.
Are you sure?
Well, it has like 9 different subtitles. So it's the Pine Valley series, and it'll eventually end up linking up with my dragons.
Oh.
So this is the Pine Valley element, the elemental dragons. And eventually this will hook up with that. So it's a pretty hook up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the characters will eventually blend together. And so it's the Juneau packs, the first 4 are complete. That's a complete series. And I actually start every single book with the same prologue from a different character's point of view. So there's 4.
Oh, interesting. What a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh,
and it's the same prologue from all their points of view.
That's kind of cool.
It's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to write. And the story goes like, I had to, oh my gosh, You want to talk about having to plot this out, and this is one of the ones that I had a real process for, because I actually had to create an Excel file that had 4 columns for each of the 4 books with the characters and the dates and what was happening when, so that everything made sense when you hit the very
Yeah.
last story.
Yeah.
It all blended together. It was by the time I got to the second book, I'm like, oh crap, I need a method for this.
It's like, why did I decide to do this? This was not a good plan. Why did I do this to myself? Right.
But I have to say, this is one of my favorites. This is one of my favorite series to write, because I got to go back to Alaska in the series. You know, I got to go back and kind of re-explore Alaska, and I want to go back to Alaska again.
Nice.
But yeah.
Nice.
A lot of fun.
Wow. So I'm gonna put that over there. I just want to see if there's anything on my list that we didn't get to, but I want to make sure that we get. Well, here's one. For those that are new to you and to your writing, she's got 60 books. So there's a lot you could choose from. Where would you tell people to start? Like, if you were to say, you know what, if you want a good taste of what, maybe one from each of your pen names, since you write so many.
I actually think that if you were looking for a solid standalone in each of the pen names, it would definitely be Not Quite Juliet for Katherine. It would be this one. It's supposed to be part of a series, but it stands alone, and it is part of the consent, the what I'm calling the Club Imperial City of Steel series. And that's a good place because it does stand alone nicely. The story wraps up at the end. You could tell that there's supposed to be other stories, but you're satisfied at the end of this one. You don't necessarily need to.
Right.
For J. Rose Alexander, who's the real me, it's this one, Shadow and Glass. This book is probably one of my favorite books that I've ever written, and it does stand alone. It will eventually have other books. It will eventually. There's 2 others, one called Family Portraits and the other one called Monarchy of Roses, but this stands alone beautifully. It was meant to be a standalone. It was just that I got inspired much later on.
Sure.
I wrote this one in, I think this was another 45-day book, to the point where I was writing 5,000 words a day, and it's 114,000 words. It's so long. But it's not necessarily a romance, though there is a strong romantic story in it. It's actually an alternate history. You go into, it's the United States, but in 1865, the Civil War didn't end. And a small faction rose up and set up a throne for the United States. And this is the story of the princess, the Princess Royale, the Crown Princess. So
interesting. You're all over the place.
Yeah.
And then you have a third pen name too, right?
I do. I don't have anything
to show
from that. I mean, I have, there are books from me, in that pen name. I just don't have any of them printed yet.
Yeah,
they do exist in print, but let me see if
you know what? Our stock sometimes runs low. We do what we can to keep paperbacks on hand, but you know what? Sometimes it just doesn't happen.
It does not happen, exactly. And
Amazon takes really, really long time to ship your books, so you could be.
Or they get books that are crap when you get them.
It's true. Oh, I miss Create Space. I miss Create
Space. I know, I do
so
too.
Much. I just. So while you're sort of searching for that, wondering where would people go if they just sort of wanted to learn more about you? I know your website is currently under construction, but is it down? Can people still look at it, or is it
the old one is still up? The old one is still up, and it's simply KatherineRhodes.com. I also believe that jrosealexander.com and sasummers.com are all currently in existence.
And I can put that information too when we post this video, just kind of link down so that people can learn more about you and your 60 some odd books. How do you lose count? Well, I guess if you have 60 odd books, that's how you do
That's
it.
how you lose count.
That's how you lose count. That's how you lose count.
Correct. Okay. This is only my arc that I have on here, but this is Marcus in retrograde.
Oh.
So that's the arc version of it.
An arc, for those that don't know what that means, it means advanced reader copies. So it's basically done, but we've got some like readers out there who will read it and go, hey, you know what, ding dong, you might want to change this before you hit publish. You know?
Two characters, you name the same character with two different names.
Yeah, so things like that happen. So yeah.
Okay, here's a better
oh yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
This is the second one in the series, Uriah's Orbit. Every single one in this, the Aligning Star series, will be named after one of the planetary signs.
Oh, aren't you? You're so clever. You're so clever.
Sometimes I am. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're based on the zodiac signs. It's just that that's the particular star sign that I picked for that story.
Right.
You know, because I know that, I forgot who it is, but they do a whole Signs of Love series where the characters are actually based on their astrological characteristics.
Nice.
It was like way too much for me to handle, but
right. That's a lot of research. That's a lot of research.
I also just wanted to show this.
Yes.
This is
yes. Tell us about that one. Yeah, I love that cover. I really do. I remember when you first put that out, I'm like, that is a riot. I love that. That's I love it.
It's teenage superheroes in Iowa. They live in Iowa.
Well, why wouldn't they?
And this is actually good for anybody who's over age 13.
Nice.
Because it's a fun read, and we set it up that there's a novel, like a novella at the beginning, and then there's a bunch of short stories, and the rest of the books are going to be like that. They're going to be just have little short stories or novellas in them all the way through till the very last book. So
cool.
You can read just a short story before going to bed. And
nice. Yeah.
We kind of set it up that way for younger kids too.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to get 13, 14, 15-year-olds to read.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe a 4 or 5 page story at night would be a great idea.
Yeah, my daughter really hates long chapters. I'm like, honey, that's not a long chapter. It's 10 pages long.
Not long. That's not a long chapter.
But so I understand her struggle, but come on now. Come on.
Yeah, there's actually in this particular book, there's one called Under New Management. It's a little short story. It is literally 2.5 pages.
There you go. That's something easy and quick, especially for like if kids have like, you have to read 20 minutes every night or something like that.
Oh, they're great for 20-minute reads. They're great for 20-minute reads. And it's my superheroes, so naturally I love them.
Right.
I love writing superheroes. I wish I could get some serious traction. Like, people have told me this one and my Penumbra books, the Witch Wolf series, should be made into movies or TV shows. But that's like.
Are you more of a DC girl or a Marvel girl?
I'm a little bit more DC than Marvel, but I love Marvel. I love the Marvel movies. I love the stuff that goes on. But I'm definitely a Supergirl type of person, Superman type of person. In fact, the whole series that's coming out, I have a Superman style character.
Nice. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with that at all.
Nope.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to talk about, mention, ask, make sure that we cover before we sign off, or have we covered it all?
Please don't return your books.
Oh, Please don't return your books.
Please don't return books.
Or your audiobooks. Just don't do it.
Audio. Oh, that audiobook thing is ridiculous.
We can't keep writing if you return your books. We don't get paid, and we can't keep writing books that you want to read. So pay for the book. Please pay. Don't go for the.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you really have trouble affording it and you can only afford 2 or 3 books a month, get KU.
Yeah.
There's so many people.
And then we still get paid through KU.
We still get paid out of Kindle Unlimited. We still get a decent paycheck out of that. So, you know.
Yeah. So don't starve us so that your shelves are bare, because
we don't want you to starve either, but
we can't afford to keep doing this. Yeah, exactly. You know. Exactly. Yeah. Well, on that upbeat note, that does it for us. Tune in next month when our theme will be fantasy novels with guest Amy Miles. This has been Danielle Bannister with Steamy Read guest Katherine Rhodes on Writers on Writers. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.